Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston sports podcast for diehard Houston sports fans. From a diehard Houston sports fan, I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Astros fan, podcaster. I'm an actor, movie nerd, self-appointed cookie philosopher, and creative multi-hyphenate. Of course, I'm a Houston native and I have the receipts to prove it. I remember Houston Mayor Anise Parker. I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in LA, and now I am podcasting. That's what happens when you hit 10 years out here. You just start to accept LAX as an acceptable experience, and the mayor of the city shows up and gives you a podcast. Welcome to said podcast. This is what my brother calls the prod bod. Let's try that again. The prod bod Paul. Oh man, I love it. Usually I do a vocal warm up to make sure I hit this, but the Paul Broad Pod Ball blog. Hey brother, check out spacecadetsports.substack.com for the full blog experience, or the full blog experience, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Here. We started Space Cadet Sports as a passion project because most media is kind of infuriating. As a die-hard long-term fan of Houston sports teams, here we try not to be doom and gloom fans, or worse, the national media haters or avoiders. We love our teams and try to root them on, but we also want to discuss the ins and outs of our teams without too much homerism. Keyword try. We try to be reasonable and not too hot takey or reactionary here, and now that football season is nigh, we're in the middle of it, in the middle of football season. We're very excited that we are mostly a football podcast right now. We're also going to get into some Astros. We're going to talk some Dynamo even, and your Houston Rockets, of course. We're recording this transmission here in sunny LA. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and co-producer, the Roz to my Frasier. Carla, the dog, is here with me. Longtime listeners of the podcast know that she may get on mic from time to time. She's got the hot takes on this podcast. On this episode, it's Paul's Picks. Welcome to Paul's Picks. You've heard of Jimmy the Greek. Welcome, Paulie the Geek. We are going to pick all of the NFL games today as if it was a pigskin pick'em. We're going to look at the lines, we're going to look at the over-unders, but I will be making the picks as if we're just picking them straight up. This is the time I like to mention that this is also a comedy podcast for all of my degenerate gamblers out there looking for some information. Do take this with a big grain of salt. Maybe take it with a big grain of rice too. Whatever grains you have, take it with a couple of grains. But we're happy to talk sports here. We're going to also, as mentioned earlier, talk about some Houston Texans. We'll talk about our Houston Rockets. Going to talk about our Astros, and even stop momentarily by Dynamo Corner to talk about the Houston Dynamo. Folks, I want to give you a good day, mates, to all my listeners out there. If you're a first-time listener to this podcast, welcome. We get into all of our Houston teams here. We kind of nerd out a little bit about them here. We are very happy to talk about your Houston teams. Yeah, I am a goofball. I am a comedy writer. I am an actor. I am a nerdy guy living in Los Angeles, and I'm very happy to talk about my Houston sports teams. Welcome to new listeners. For all of my new listeners out there, I would just like to say we like to start off by looking back, getting retrospective, being a little nostalgic. I have been making these picks all season long, so we're going to look back to last week to see how I did. That's how we start off the podcast. And before I do that, honestly, kind of stumbling out the gate here. I don't like doing vocal warm-ups, but obviously I need to do them. I'm a bit of a stammerer. I'm a bit of a mush mouth. I have pronunciation issues, which definitely means I should be in podcasting, right? But no, I am going to take a big sip of coffee here before we start looking back at last week. Last week was a rough one for me. NFL Week 11. My goodness, folks. I'm going to need a lot of coffee to get through this episode. It was a tough one. I was 9-5 last week. Oof, magoof. Didn't get to the double-digit wins last week, which definitely made me sad. I needed it. But on top of that, even more embarrassing, and I will admit it on the podcast. We are vulnerable on the podcast. I let you know everything. Well, not everything. I mean, come on. We're not going to let you know everything. But I will let you know that I totally missed putting my picks into the app this week. I'm ashamed. I think maybe I should have a pre-written statement, an apology, to let y'all know that I didn't get my picks in. That's kind of it. This juncture of the season, I've been, kind of idling in fourth place in the league after missing to get my picks in for last week. I think that is going to get me too many losses. I did get my picks in for the afternoon games and the Monday night game. I believe I was able to do that, to salvage some kind of bit to my season there. But it happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. I thought on Thursday after I did my podcast, I set my picks in the app. Whether I actually did that or not, I obviously didn't submit or save them or really double check that those picks were in. So let this be a PSA to all of y'all out there. Do not forget to get your picks in today. Don't forget to double check that actually submitted. That I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for myself. I could have easily done that. But you know what? I am going to sit here and make excuses for myself. My brother was in town last week. Last week when I recorded the podcast, he was in studio. He joined Carla and I. He didn't get on mic. He didn't want to get on record with his picks. Of course, he wasn't quite ready to just immediately jump into a football podcast with no preparation, but he was in studio. I was very happy that he came to visit me. It was a much needed visit for the both of us, truly. We hadn't seen each other in quite some time. We got to just goof off, but because I had my brother in town, I think I just was a little distracted, and I did not go back and double check that my picks were in. So last week was a really tough week for me. I think I only, at the end of the day, in the app, I only got, 4 wins that week. So yeah, I think that season's kind of over for me. Congratulations and congratulations to my friends in that league for beating me this season by me beating myself. But that's how fantasy sports goes. Sometimes you need to be consistent. You need to get those picks in. You need to be on the waiver wire. Whatever you do in that league, you need to be consistent. And I just dropped the ball. So I'm definitely frustrated by that. But instead of harping on my personal issues, let's actually look at my picks. 9-5 was my week. So what we like to do, instead of just me dunking on all of my W's, we look back at my losses. We look at how many L's I took. So this week we have 5. Oh my goodness. We usually, it's been good for me lately. I've only had to talk about 3 or 4 games in the past week that I got wrong. This week we have 5. So enough of me making excuses. Let's get to the content. I have a lot to talk about today. The first game that I got wrong, goodness, I just can't get over missing that many picks. So long season, yeah, no soup for you, Paul. The first game was that I got wrong, at least, was Washington against Philadelphia. Philadelphia won 26-18. I felt good about the Commanders. I've been feeling, I just feel like the momentum kind of got to me here. The momentum of the Eagles just really not being a team that I trusted. The momentum of the Commanders just kind of being a hot offense and kind of being kind of media darlings in a way, Definitely kind of fell for the hype of the Commanders offense a bit, and I fell for the narrative that the Eagles can beat themselves, and they can do that. Both of those things are true. I just think that I should have looked to some larger trends in this game. I just got it wrong. The Commanders still don't have a defense. It's hard to win games without that. The Philadelphia Eagles are a better team. They ended up winning this one. I just got it wrong, Just fell for the trends a little bit with that pick, I believe. Next game I got wrong was Baltimore versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Steelers won 18-16. I really don't know why I went against the Steelers. Going against the Steelers always seems like a bit of a bad choice. They're always a feisty team. They're definitely having a really good season. They're well coached. The Ravens haven't really proven too much to be unbeatable. They're not dominating the league this season, even though they have been, a really good team. So I don't know what I was smoking, when I made that pick, but obviously, if I could have that one back, I feel like if I would have thought these through a little bit more, maybe I would have changed my mind with a little bit of hand wringing. I just got both of those takes really wrong. And that's kind of how the week has gone. I feel like only one of these I kind of got burned by. The other four, I think, I just should have thought through a little more, or just kind of fell for a little narrative or a hype in some kind of way. What happened? That happens towards the middle of the season. You kind of change perspective a little bit. Sometimes you fall for some stories and narratives that are out there. And when you kind of look back at it, you're like, I really didn't believe that. I think I just fell for it. But Indianapolis versus the New York Jets was the next game I got wrong. Indy won this one. The Colts won 28-27. The Colts do have enough to beat this terrible team, but it isn't quite the flex that you would think it is, with the New York Jets in shambles yet again. I believe they let their general manager go. Got rid of the coach, got rid of the GM. Aaron Rodgers is going to be running this team the rest of the way, and I think he's going to maybe run them from the sidelines. I don't know if he'll be starting. I do not know what it's like to be a Jets fan, but it seems like it would be pretty miserable having the Colts have enough to beat you in this game. Definitely is tough. I do think that the Jets are just a pretty miserable team. So, that's just how it is. The Colts had enough offense to win this game. I feel like you should bet against the Jets if there's a reasonably good team playing them. Moving on, Atlanta Falcons versus the Denver Broncos. I got this one completely wrong, and I have to come to you with my hat in hand with a sincere apology. I got this one so wrong. Atlanta 6, Denver 38. Wow. I got both of the dogs of the week options wrong. Really bad takes from me. My brother Jesse distracted me too much. No, I really got this past week pretty wrong. The Falcons are not good, but I thought they had enough. The Denver Broncos, they have an offense now to go with the defense, so they're kind of trending up, but I don't know what this team's ceiling truly is, at least this season. But, it looks like they'll play spoilers and potentially even make some noise going forward, as the Denver Broncos are 6-5, shockingly. I just think these two middling teams I just kind of got wrong. I thought the Falcons were the worst of the best teams, and the Denver Broncos were kind of climbing up the ranks of being really good bad teams. And I think that both of these teams are really good bad teams, if that makes sense. The Atlanta Falcons have dropped down from being the worst good team to definitely being the best bad team, or arguably not even the best bad team anymore, but they definitely have fall into that category at that point of the season. For me, I've truly, kind of like the Saints. Early in the season, I was buying some stock in the Saints and the Falcons, and as the season has progressed, I have been selling and selling and selling and cutting my losses. The Falcons are not that great. Obviously, I was never trying to be like they're the best team in the world, but obviously they've lost some shine for me. I picked them as an underdog of the week, and boy, was I wrong. I apologize to you, and I apologize to Carla for putting her in a position to be every week for new listeners, we have an underdog of the week called Carla's Dog of the Week, and she gets to choose them based off of the underdogs that I choose for the week. And I did not choose good underdogs. I am a little gun shy this week for sure. We're going to try to make it better for her. But the next game I got wrong was Seattle versus San Francisco. Seattle won 20-17. Seattle is good. I thought earlier in the season, I've said multiple times on the podcast, this bad take of Atlanta being the best, or being the worst good team, and Seattle being the best worst team. But I think I had that flip. Seattle's looking more like the worst good team of the group, and so Seattle's kind of risen a little bit for me, but I still. I still don't know how much confidence I have in them going forward. That AFC West is definitely going to be interesting. I think San Francisco and the Ravens get the same kind of treatment at this point, where they're San Francisco's record is much worse than the Ravens, but they're essentially these two teams that I felt really more confidently about and more strongly about at the beginning of the season, and they kind of make me nervous now. I still think they're good, but I don't know how much I can ride them going late into the year and definitely going into the playoffs. So we're kind of got them on fraud watch a little bit, and I think that's a bit of a stretch to incorporate the Baltimore Ravens into this group with the San Francisco 49ers after a loss like this, but that is kind of truly, where I am putting them. I just don't quite know what to make of them. I think they're good teams, but I think they can do some damage in the league, but when it comes to actually, doing long-term damage or getting to the playoffs or actually winning big football games, I'm just a little nervous about how successful they can be long-term as opposed to week to week. I think Detroit is the top of the pops right now, and all the other teams right now are kind of getting side-eye for me and me trying to figure out, are you just week to week a good football team, or are you building a team that's going to be successful long term, at least long term this season, going into the playoffs and into January? Kind of as that page turns, you separate the contenders from the pretenders, so I'm trying to sort that out as we go here. Right now, the biggest contender we have is obviously the Detroit Lions, and everybody else kind of falls into a middling tier after that of me trying to sort through who was real and who is not. I think, as we're going forward here, we're going to try to focus up and make sure we get really good picks this week. I need double-digit wins. I need to not lose any games for the next couple of weeks to try to raise back up my standings. I don't think I'm going to win this league, but I definitely need to play for some pride. I'm not packing it up now that I had a bad week. I want, I've told you listeners plenty of times before, my partner, Sarah, my girlfriend and partner, she is in this league too. She has now surpassed me in the ranks because she actually made her picks this week. So I want to make sure I finish this season with a better record than Sarah for some bragging rights. I cannot spend the off season knowing that I didn't win pick'ems in my own house. So I'm fighting for that respect, fighting for that right. You got to play for some pride. You got to play for something, right, folks? I might not win, but I have to win in home. So pray for me. Thoughts and prayers, for sure. Send them over to me right before. In fact, let's have a moment of prayer before I make my Week 12 picks. Let's look ahead here to tonight's game. We have Pittsburgh at Cleveland. in Thursday night football. Cleveland is your home dogs here, plus 3.5 at home. The over/under is 36.5. What a Thursday night game. Another low-scoring Thursday night game. I don't know. I don't know who the schedule makers were, but I'm sure Amazon Prime is going to do some analytics to see if they can get some better matchups next season. I feel like you have to go with Pittsburgh after last week and, after all of Cleveland's football play over let me check my watch, the last couple of decades. You go with the Steelers here and you don't overthink it. Then I need to make up some wins, so it's no time to get cute. Another low-scoring Thursday night game, and that seems like it is prime for the Pittsburgh Steelers to win a very Steelery type game, a low-scoring game where their defense kind of wins it. I don't see how the Browns could win this. It seems like it's completely stacked for a Pittsburgh win. I feel so sure about this. This could almost be thrown into. We're gonna throw it into the pile. Maybe this is Paul's pick of the week. We'll have to see going forward. There are plenty of games to choose from, but I feel pretty confident. It seems like a Thursday night game against a team from Ohio. It's going to be low scoring. I don't see how the Steelers lose this one. We're going with Pittsburgh, and we move on to Sunday. Next game on Sunday is Kansas City at Carolina. Carolina, definitely, I don't think they'll ever be favored at home, at least this season. They are plus 11 at home, huge underdogs at home. The over-under is 43. I know, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs finally lost a game, but there is no way that I'm thinking they lose to the Panthers. I feel bad for the Panthers this week because they're going to get destroyed in this game. Kansas City is going to come out firing. The Panthers have no chance. This is definitely a no-doubter. This goes into the Paul's Picks pile as well. Kansas City, and move on. The next game is Minnesota at Chicago. Chicago is home dog. A third home dog in a row here, plus 3.5 at home. The over-under is 39.5. Looking for a low-scoring one here with Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold matching up. I've been high on the Vikings, but it is still shocking to see that they are 8-2. I think they win this, but I'm very unsure as to how serious either one of these teams actually are. I think, the next couple of weeks we're going to see exactly where we think the Vikings are going to be towards the end of the season. However, I do think the Vikings take this one. I don't anticipate Chicago being able to win this with their offense. I think Minnesota's defense wins it. I think Minnesota finds a way to score here, and that's how they win it with a little bit of a little bit of game planning. The coaches in Minnesota, I think they're kind of always prepared. So I'm going with them, but I'm very unsure as to what these teams are going to be like going forward. I think Minnesota's good, but like those Sam Darnold questions on offense, and we'll see what they are able to game plan and kind of get going through game scripting and quarterback game management. The next game is going to be Tennessee at Houston. Houston, my Texans are favored at home, no longer home dogs. This is a home favorite. Minus 7.5 with an over-under 40.5. And I mean, come on, H-Town, baby. You know that I'm wearing H-Town blue right now. Are the Titans going to sue me? I'm wearing blue. Are you going to sue me, Greg? I hope this game is 70-0 with Houston absolutely demolishing the Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. I am picking Houston, of course. The Tennessee Titans are not very good. The Houston Texans are a good team trying to figure out ways to to continue to close out games and to find ways to score in the second half. I feel like this is the Texans. And moving on, we'll talk a little bit more about the Texans going forward in a future little Texans segment. But yeah, we'll move on here. Detroit at Indianapolis is the next game. Indianapolis is not going to be a favorite at home. They are home dogs plus 7.5 against Detroit. The over under here is 50.5. So long and farewell to any good feelings that existed in Indianapolis. They are all worried about this game, as they should be. This game is going to be as lopsided as a bag of unwieldy potatoes. Folks, there's no way Indy can win this game. I just don't see it. I mean, the Houston Texans, I saw them valiantly fight the Detroit Lions. I feel like that was the most invincible the Detroit Lions have looked, at least in this stretch of their season. I think they are going to just smack the Colts around the way the Hulk threw around Loki in the Avengers. I really think that I'm just talking about this so much because I want to see the Colts get demolished, not because I think that this game needs further description. Detroit, moving on. New England at Miami. Miami's favorite at home, -7. The over-under is 46. Miami is heavily favored here, but I think Miami just ekes it out. I don't know if I feel good about the line, so definitely staying away. But, maybe these teams more intimately than I do. I know that the Patriots aren't good. I know that the Miami has been trending upwards. They're trying to find that offense. So we are picking Miami and moving on. The next game is Tampa Bay at the New York Giants. Giants are home dogs plus 6 at home. The over-under is 41.5. I mean, Tampa, for sure. Can't pick the Giants. I don't even think Tampa is that fantastic. But I mean, I just can't pick the Giants here. Sorry, Giants fans. Tampa and moving on. The next game is going to be the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are favored at home, -10.5. The over-under is 45. I mean, yes, it's a potential trap game for the 7-4 Commanders a bit, but I don't think Dallas can beat them. I don't think Dallas has the defense. I do worry that I do worry that Washington can beat themselves a bit with their terrible defense, but in no way do I think the Dallas Cowboys, actually score enough here. So I'm going commando here. Definitely going commando with this game. We're going with the Commanders. I think that line -10.5 is wild to me, but I do favor them as well. The Cowboys are having a pretty bad season if the Commanders are favored that heavily, even at home. Moving on from me going commando, the Denver Broncos are playing the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders at home are home dogs, given +6. 41 actually, just 41 is the over-under. I might never bet against Denver again. With Bo Nix officially on my fantasy team over Kirk Cousins now, my support for middling teams has switched from Atlanta to Denver. But the Raiders are pretty, miserable looking. So, we're thinking Denver's defense has a dominant game. Their offense scored a lot last week. We're thinking they make easy work of the Raiders here. The next game is San Francisco at Green Bay. Green Bay is favored at home, minimally, -2, favored at home. The over-under is 47.5, looking to score some points in this game. This looks like an offensive showdown, and it's looked like it's going to be one that comes down to the wire. It could be one that depends on who has the ball last. And I don't quite know how to put my finger on it, but I feel like San Francisco is going to be able to eke this one out and be a little more consistent than Green Bay. I'm staying away. I think Green Bay kind of, this is going to be a coaching matchup for sure. I think I don't know. It feels more like a gut thing than a logic thing, which is kind of terrible because last week I went with a lot of gut picks and it kind of hurt me. But instead of going with my logic here, I am trusting my gut in this one. I think the line is barely in Green Bay's favor. I like the talent on San Francisco. I feel like they are fighting for their season here. And I'm going with San Francisco. I just feel like they're fighting for their season. I feel like they don't want to let this one get away, and they're going to do everything in their power. They're going to pull out all the stops and try to have the ball last and try to win this one. So I feel like because of the desperation, perhaps, that kind of desperation narrative that they have to win, I'm going with San Francisco. I'm already overthinking it. I'm already thinking I should switch that up. But we're going to go with San Francisco and move on. Folks, the next game, the last game on Sunday here that I have on my list is Philadelphia at the LA Rams. The LA Rams, once again, we have another home dog. We have another underdog at home with the LA Rams +3. The over-under is 49. I don't trust the Eagles. I've been saying it all season, and even though they are probably at their height of trust right now, I still don't trust them. So I guess that it either says something about me or it says something about the Eagles, and I think next week it'll be a little more clear. But the Rams, they really haven't been great either, so I'm betting on Philly riding this momentum and their defense here, but I don't feel good about it. I feel like I'm trying to learn my lessons about my distrust from Philly. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, so I'm going to go with the gang here and choose Philly. The last game is going to be the Monday night football game here, Baltimore at the LA Chargers, and I truly think this is going to be a good one to watch here. The Chargers are the last home dogs of the week. They're +3 at home with an over-under of 51. Definitely going to have some fireworks in this one. I think this has a little bit of potential to be a trap game for Baltimore. Their offense is top of the pops, but the passing defense in Baltimore is one of the worst in the league. The Chargers are top 5 in defense and passing and rushing per EPA per EPA per dropback or rush allowed. The top offense versus a defense that I think will be ready for them in the LA Chargers. The question here is, can the Chargers hold off the Ravens? And can they actually exploit the Ravens' passing defense here? I'm really not sure. The Chargers passing is kind of middle of the road. Even though the Ravens' passing defense is one of the worst in the league, their rushing defense is still good. The Ravens, have been a defensive team. Their whole identity has always been defense. Sometimes you just have a tough year with the secondary. That's kind of where they're at right now. I have been getting slowly over time, have been higher and higher on the Chargers as they have gone on this season. But after running all of the simulations in my head, I feel like this game has some serious wonky potential and is going to be a close one to call. But we have to call them. That's the job here, folks. That's what I get on the podcast to do. So I'm going to call Baltimore to win this one, but barely. And I don't feel confident about it. I don't feel good about it. Obviously, I'm trying to be undefeated, trying to choose as wisely as I can. I feel like the Chargers are definitely going to try to spoil this one for Baltimore, but we're going to go with Baltimore to barely win this one here. So for Paul's pick of the week, looking back here at these picks, we have Kansas City as an option for Paul's pick of the week. We have Washington, the Commando, going Commando here with Paul's pick of the week, perhaps. But between the two, as much as I distrust Dallas, I trust Kansas City after, not quite, having their undefeated season come to a halt, I guess is what I'm trying to say. After their undefeated season grinds to a halt, they have the Carolina Panthers in their schedule. I have a feeling there's no way they're losing this game, even though I don't think the Cowboys can beat the Commanders. That does have a little bit of potential for trap game. There's no way the Chiefs-Panthers game is a trap game for the Chiefs. We're going with the Chiefs to win this one for Paul's pick of the week. Now, Carla's dog of the week. We're looking at our underdogs here. Last week was was tough for Carla because Carla has been undefeated since I mixed up how we choose Carla's dog of the week. The beginning of the season was tough for her as I was choosing them for her. So the past couple weeks I've been choosing Carla's dog of the week by letting her choose a treat that has a marking of different teams on it. Unfortunately for Carla and for y'all out there in podcast land, this week I very much went chalk. I'm trying to get those wins back, folks. Really, there's a lot of teams on a bye. I feel very confidently about most of these picks. So I didn't have a lot of underdogs this week. In fact, I only had one, the San Francisco 49ers. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Carla a treat and give her an offering. We'll give her that for Carla's dog of the week. We won't have a way for her to pick it, but we will give her a treat offering. When Carla's dog of the week is going to be the San Francisco 49ers to upset the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Carla is giving me side eye, but that's the only dog of the week I have, Carla. Moving on, let's talk a little bit more specifically about your Houston Texans. The Texans beat the Cowboys last week. The sky is falling in Dallas. I really... There we go. Once again, they're Delulu over there thinking they run Texas in Dallas. The Cowboys just are kind of always been a little bit of a laughing stock. I'm not trying to be like the Texans are world beaters or anything, but I do think it's quite hilarious how high and mighty Cowboys fans feel in Dallas. They think they run Texas because of merch sales. I'm really not quite sure. And even that's not quite the case anymore. CJ Stroud, your baby boy, was leading all NFL merch sales with jersey sales this year. So, I don't know where the delusion and confusion in Dallas is where they think they run Texas. I truly don't. I don't know that. If I was them, I would have just kept a little quiet this season. But Dallas is kind of like a little brother that thinks that because they wear polos and chinos every day, that they are a little bit more respectable as a sibling, and therefore they're now the older brother. It's like, no, Dallas, we're the older brother. You're just basic. You think you're more responsible because you wear polos and chinos, but you're basic, Dallas. Enjoy your teams, but no one else outside of Dallas does. So I'm glad that the Houston Texans can beat the Cowboys 34-10. I don't understand. They thought we were running up the score. These fans out there are delusional. I'm glad the Texans could win. They're a much better team. They made it easy. I wasn't worried about the actual win. Obviously, we didn't want to get embarrassed by losing to the Cowboys, but I wasn't worried about us winning. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans next week coming up here on Sunday. Now, heads up, folks, there is a little bit of trap game potential here, but the Titans do have a defense, but they don't have an offense. I think the Texans keep sharpening their skills here and confidence against a lower tier team, just like they did against the Cowboys. Like, obviously, like Al Pacino, any given Sunday, any given Sunday, any team can win, folks. I'm not trying to be delusional myself, but when you're playing a lower tier team like the Cowboys or the Tennessee Titans, you're hopeful that you're let's say, our upper middle class team of the Houston Texans can show you that they are a tier above the lower tier here, but that doesn't mean that they can't win a game. I think the AFC South is so bad that luckily the Texans can capitalize on this, but they still have to win those games. Hopefully the corner is turned with this team, with Nico Collins and Joe Mixon leading this offense. I'm hoping that this offense can figure out a way. While they may be predictable on first and second down, and they keep putting CJ Stroud in these third and long situations, I'm hoping that this offense can figure out a way to be more successful with more consistent tools available to them with hopefully less injuries going forward. But as much as we revel in these rivalries, I cannot take losing to the Tennessee Titans. I'm hoping this team shows up and shows out. This offense should be humming, and this defense has been very, very good and very stingy. So, I don't think Will Levis has what it takes. I don't think he has enough mayo in the tank to beat the Houston Texans defense. I'm expecting some turnovers. I'm expecting some sacks. I'm expecting a great defensive performance, and I am hoping and praying that the Houston Texans offensive play calling can finally start humming, and maybe the stubbornness to what they have been doing finally starts becoming successful and maybe predictable, but maybe they'll start finding more success with it, or they can finally start using some of their talents and tools in a better way and position to get them to succeed. I'm hoping that this is an amazing game for the Houston Texans where they turn a corner and kind of really show to me that they are worthy of all the Super Bowl talks and all the playoff talks that people have been talking and saying in Houston and in the national media this season. I hate being a bit of a hater or a skeptic, but this team still has some things to prove to me before I'm out here talking about the Super Bowl. I'm hopeful about the playoffs because of our division, but I want to be confident in what they can do in the playoffs. Before we move on from football altogether, let's look at my fantasy scorecard here. I am 110-72 all time this season with my picks. 110. I'll take it. I was hoping for a much better week. There's worse records you can have though. Overall, for fantasy football with my friend league, I am 7-3 in fantasy, but this week's buys have made it a tough one for me. I'm playing my good friend Say for the second time, and I swear to God, I cannot afford to lose to them again. I hate being swept in a season. They already beat me once, so I'm playing for pride. But I have no players. I seriously am going, after this recording, I'm going to go pick up a tight end because I have none. Bo Nix is now my quarterback. Kirk Cousins was my quarterback was Dak Prescott. I moved on to Kirk Cousins, and now I'm on to Bo Nix. So quarterback has been tough for me with all the bye weeks. I'm struggling with running backs. It's going to be a tough week for me. 7-3, I'm hopeful that I can afford a loss, with all these buys, but I'm really hoping I can figure out salvage a way to win this week through the power of friendship, perhaps. If I'm not good enough football-wise, hopefully the power of friendship can help me. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on from football to talk about a couple of other Houston sports things. Let's talk about your Houston Rockets, who are rising in the power rankings and earning a lot of respect throughout the league. They have kind of figured out this rotation a bit. We have so much talent on this team. It was just a matter of time before we figured out the rotation with head coach Adoku really Oh my gosh, I'm having trouble reading, folks. My eyes. I need all this coffee. I'm struggling through my reading and pronunciation. I apologize. No disrespect no disrespect intended. I can't even speak right now, folks. It's just a me problem. But anyway, I'm really happy they're figuring out this rotation. We have so much talent on the team. Tari Eason and Amin Thompson. You got that TNT connection there. There is so much great wing play there coming off of the bench. We have so much great talent, so much defense and length coming off the bench. You really love to see it. This week, we had some mentioning in rumors in the press about perhaps and potentially a trade with the Milwaukee Bucks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Greek freak, the alphabet, folks. We have talent on this team that is good enough for the trade potential to land somebody like Giannis. I think that's kind of where we kind of have to land. I know some people were excited about potentially landing a really big player. The reports fizzled out. essentially coming to a point where the reports was the Rockets do not want to break up their young core, and I love that. Giannis would obviously make this team immediate contender, at least in the media when it comes to narrative. I don't know exactly. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is how the Rockets would look with Giannis on their team. This is how they would play offensively, or this is how they would be defensively. I don't really know, because at the end of the day, this would have to be a big package to land Giannis. So what the Rockets would look like would very much depend on what they had to give up, and they would have to give up a lot. And I think when you were really looking at what those potential trades could be, the Rockets were like that. We're not getting enough back long term. We need to keep building this team, and I like that they're not blowing it up. Maybe if there was a way to land a player like Giannis and not completely blow up the team, then yeah, absolutely go for it. But I love the confidence that they are sticking with the players they have, the development they have, and the picks they have. I hope that they just continue to grow and the stock in these players rise. And maybe we can get somebody else with the other trades of like Cam Whitmore has really been on the bench a lot and is obviously a good player. There's lots of good players on this roster that don't get a lot of floor time. So maybe there's a trade in the future that will really help these Houston Rockets, but maybe it's just not Giannis. I also want to shout out Jeff Green, who had a big dunk in this game versus the Pacers. Oh my God, y'all. Did y'all see those H-Town jerseys? Man, listen, if you really love your baby boy talking about your Houston teams, buy me one of those jerseys. Send it over right now. Those jerseys are so clean. They're so slick. I love that look. I'm hoping, with the Houston Astros City Connect jersey being changed, that we get another amazing jersey when they reveal those later, but these jerseys were beautiful. The throwback logo on the floor was fantastic, brought me back to the Summit era. That was my Rockets team growing up. Definitely the ketchup and mustard, the Summit, pre-compact center. Those were the days. As Archie Bunker would say. I really, that's one of the few Archie Bunker quotes that I'll ever quote for sure. But I love to see those jerseys. Love to see the throwback of Jeff Green dunking. The young players giving him some shade for his dunk. Just one loss from your Houston Rockets in the past week, where they lost to the Bucks by 1 point, 100-101. But the other games have been blowouts, beating the Clippers 125-104, beating the Bulls 143-107, and beating the Pacers 130-113. Folks, these Rockets are serious. We'd like to see them play teams like the Bucks and legit contenders, a little bit closer and a little bit better. But losing that game, definitely, with and it was reported later that Giannis was out of bounds on one of those passes. Those are things we really can't worry about too much. Obviously, it was that close of a game. There are so many other things in these close games that really could have helped put the Rockets over the top or just in a better position to win. So it's hard to blame just one incident, one bad call, but it's very frustrating to deal with, that's for sure. Not saying that you can't be upset about that. I'm just saying there are many other things the Rockets could have done, whether it's the players or the coaches, to help win that game besides just one really bad call. But still makes that call just as frustrating. This week, your Houston Rockets are going to be back-to-back at home against the Portland Trail Blazers. Then they'll be back-to-back on the road against the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Philadelphia 76ers. I almost said the Phillies. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But folks, also heads up, the NBA Cup is here and the Rockets are in the West Group A. They have won their first group game, so that's good. This is just kicking off. So we will be watching the NBA Cup to see how your Houston Rockets do in that. We're keeping an eye on that going forward, and also just Gotta love this Rockets team. They are playing insanely well, and we're hoping that they continue to go and grow as a young team and figure out this rotation and maybe make a trade to improve this team with so much talent sitting there on the bench. We'll see what they are able to do, but I know that there will be an impending trade. It just might not be for Giannis. Finally, I guess let's talk a little bit about. Let's stop by Dynamo Corner for just a brief minute. There's not a lot of Dynamo news, obviously, because the season is over. But Tim Howard, a guy that I don't agree with or talk about very much. He is in the Houston Dynamo ownership group. He basically had a quote about U.S. Soccer. Quote, doing a dance that mimics Donald Trump is stupid. Why? Because whether it's the president of the United States or the neighbor down the street, I would never back someone who I believe is racist. It's definitely not a quote that I thought Tim Howard would say. There has been times in the past where I thought Tim Howard was potentially a bit of a problematic guy, but I think, in this day and age, it's whatever side of politics you're on, I do think that we should make sure we are not doing racist things. We are not mimicking people that don't need to be mimicked. I know it's a touchy subject, but all I'm saying is sports and politics always go hand in hand. There's always people that are talking about politics, and then there's going to be blowback to that, right? Harrison Butker, the Chiefs kicker. He goes out there and he gives a whole speech about very problematic things, I would say, very misogynist things, if nothing else, kind of backwards things. That's the best way to put it. These were beliefs that a lot of people held in the past, but there's more than one way to be a woman. You don't have to have a baby, and that's not the only value you have to society, just like men don't have to have children, and that's not the only value you hold to society. There's just different ways to be a person. Not everyone's a family person, but whenever a conservative person does it, it's completely okay because they're sticking up for values, but whenever it's somebody that is calling out racism, like Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, or Tim Howard talking about how he doesn't want to back someone who he believes is racist, then it's a shut up and dribble, shut up and do your job. So, all I'm doing is saying is this is going to be problematic. There's going to be people who disagree with him. But just before you start attacking people, just think, do you only attack people that you disagree with? And then the people you agree with, they're completely given a green light. So I think, in this day and age, we're going to have to prepare for a lot of people making political statements. All I am saying is that we live in a country that has free speech, right? So you can't completely go off the rails and get angry whenever somebody says something that you disagree with. I disagree with Harrison Butker's take, but the last thing I can say is shut up and just do your job. I completely disagree with him. I think he's backwards. I think that people that believe that have a huge sadness in them that they can't overcome, but at the end of the day, all I'm saying, if you don't be the type of person that tells people to shut up and dribble or shut up and do their job, disagree with people on a more intellectual level, that's the whole point of this is disagreement, is part of life. But, kind of belittling people is silly, and it's something that happens in sports all the time. Whenever somebody does something that agrees with your conservative politics, because a lot of sports fans are conservative or lean conservative, you're completely okay with it. But when somebody says something to challenge your worldview, you're really mad at them. And I think it's partly because that this thing is racist, or something is racist, and it calls you out and makes you feel shame or guilt. So, just be a little reflective in this moment, is all I am asking for. You don't have to agree with me. You can disagree with me. That's part of life, but finding ways to disagree with each other and have a conversation about it in a healthy way, in a way that is productive, where we're talking and having a conversation as opposed to just vilifying somebody that holds a belief different than you. This day and age, we need to be able to communicate more. We need to be able to disagree some more. We will be disagreeing a lot on a lot of things. That's life. So, the only reason I stop by Dynamo Corner, the only reason I purposefully talk about something political, and I know people will probably disagree with me on all sorts of the sides, some on the left, on the right. No one's going to completely agree with me. And I get here on a podcast and I talk about things all the time. You have to be okay with people disagreeing with you. You have to be okay with having a conversation about things. Don't just immediately attack people that have a different belief than you. Try to sit down, talk with them, and figure out where that is coming from. You don't have to believe them or you agree with them, but just have be a little more open-minded about things in this area is all I am asking my conservative friends to do. Folks, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Astros here. The Astros, Alex Bregman declines his qualifying offer. As expected, no one was looking for Alex Bregman to accept the qualifying offer. He and his agent reportedly are looking for a Manny Machado type contract that is 11 years, 350 million perhaps is what they're aiming for. So I'm not sure if that's what I want. Is that what you want, folks? I'm not sure. 11 years is a really long time. Manny Machado is an offensive juggernaut. If you go to Baseball Reference, you look at their offensive numbers back side by side. Machado has a better offensive resume than Bregman does. I'm not saying nobody is going to pay that for Bregman because you never know. Somebody could overpay and make it very difficult for us to match his contract, but I just don't see 11 years, $350 million for Bregman out there on the market. He's an incredible player. It would absolutely hurt to see him go, but I don't know if that's what it's going to be, but there could be a team that can come close to that and just really back up the Brinks truck, and we could be in trouble. It's tough. I would hate to see Bregman go. It's almost like a breakup, where in your heart it's kind of inevitable. So maybe I'm just kind of preparing myself for a really tough, tough thing where seeing Bregman leave. But like I've said in the past, if we sign Bregman, it'd be that much difficult to sign Fromber and Tucker. So we're hopeful we can sign Bregman. But if we sign Bregman, we do worry about what the free agent signing is going to be going forward. The next piece of Astros news is Dyken Park. Dyken Park, we did an article about this on the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. I think, it's no longer going to be the juice box. We're moving on to the ice box, Dyken Park. To me, this is a non-story. This is just another little tidbit. But for whatever reason, maybe it's just that it's a, slow news day. So a lot of bloggers and a lot of Astros, you have to make memes. You have to have content. So maybe it's just, people needing content. But are we really that upset about this, folks? I mean, calm down. What is it about this that we're upset about? That something changes? Are we so scared of change that this thing upsets us? Folks, don't be scared of change. What's wrong with you? Grow up. This is a silly thing. Are we upset that it's a Japanese company? Is that what this is? I hope not, because first of all, it's silly. We only let American companies do ridiculous things, I guess. I mean, we literally have another stadium with a Japanese company in the city a couple of blocks away. I don't know if you noticed this, but Toyota Center is named after Toyota. Toyota is a Japanese company. So I just don't understand why people are upset about this. It's like, oh no, my American Juice brothers aren't getting money. I must be upset. Like, nobody in Minute Maid knows you. Don't we, like, what are we upset about? The owner of Minute Maid losing money? I mean, the contract was over. That's what happens in business. Contracts end, new partners are found. The Astros are looking to make some more money, obviously. They didn't go have a deep postseason run. Merch sales are going to be lower. Everybody wants us to sign Alex Bregman. The way they do that is making more money, having more money coming in. So this, is a money-making move. I don't think that we should be that upset about it. It's kind of a silly look. Being upset about the company that slaps their name on your stadium is so silly, and to make it about being from another country kind of makes you look like a fool. It's like being imprisoned and being upset that the bars they locked you up with wasn't made with American steel. What are we even talking about? You're okay with the free market until you realize it's free. It just kind of, like I mentioned, that like racism is a bad thing. This kind of has subtle like America first and racism thing in it. There's multiple companies in the market. We can't be upset that it's an overseas company. The Astros are trying to make money, and this was the best bid. You want them to sign Bregman, you want them to make money, then they got to make money. But yeah, I guess I just fully don't understand, and it kind of seems like it's just in some weird kind of racist arena. So I can't believe I have to say this, but stop being racist, people. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed I have to keep saying this shit. Racism is dumb, and you're dumb if you think racism is reasonable. If this is just like you want the American economy to do better, then I mean, you can't. When you have a free market, you can't control what companies are able to enter that market and make money in America. You want American companies to do well. I can understand that to some extent, but the American business of the Houston Astros is doing well by partnering with a foreign business, I should say, that will get them more money in this contract. So, I don't quite get it. I don't understand. It's either that people are just so scared of change, or that they are, which is silly too. Things change. I don't know. That's another thing, folks. Things change all the time. To fight change is to drown in a current. You can't fight something that is going to happen, despite what you do. Change happens. Progress happens. Things, like contracts in. So, just calm down about the icebox. Calm down about these things. It really doesn't affect you that much, and it's just the Astros making money. I don't know. This became a more political episode than we intended. I know. The comments are going to be crazy. Not really. Everyone's fairly reasonable here. But yeah, all I'm trying to say, folks, is just kind of watch what kind of memes and what kind of jokes you're falling for, because some of them are just a little silly, and it's just like, you don't want to look like somebody who's scared of change or who's scared of Japanese companies. It just seems very silly. But with that being said, folks, that's going to do it for this transmission, Space Cadets. Thank you so much. Please like, rate, review, subscribe, share, bop it, kick it, skip it, all of those buttons wherever you're listening to this podcast on. Please hit those buttons and smash those buttons for me. If you'd be so kind, check out the Substack, the Broad Pod Bob. I can't say it. I thought without all of this talking, I was warm enough to do the tongue twister. I cannot. Folks, check out the Substack. That's spacecadetsports.substack.com. Once again, that's spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can get every article, every meme dump, every podcast for free if you put your email address in that field, or you can go to the Substack app, download that in your app store, search Space Cadet Sports, and subscribe for free there. You can say that you want notifications instead of emails and get notifications on your phone or iPad, and just skip the email process and just have it done mobily. I love that experience. That's kind of the way that I do it. If you'd be so kind, reach out on social media. That's going to be at Space Cadet Sports on Instagram and Threads, or you can call in at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. Once again, that's speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. If you need to sound off on any of the things I've said, definitely let me know. I do hear those voicemails, as long as it isn't too problematic or too ridiculous. I'd love to play it on the podcast. If nothing else, it's good to get your voicemails. Definitely, thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox for this episode. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Houston.